Shrewd trainer. Just about to walk in here, you see the starters on his stand. Let's join him for the last Haydock. Here we go.
Starters ready for them. Flags are up. Thanks, Niall. Yep, coming in for the finale. They're off, jumping away for the better value on the Betfair Exchange handicap chase. First of the 19 fences looming large, the Sue Smith pair, Delusion of Grandeur and the Grey Vintage Clouds lead. And Captain Redbeard wasn't particularly fluent at the first, the white-faced gelding right down on the inner, kept his feet, and now a longish run to the first of the fences over on the far side. So Delusion of Grandeur and Vintage Clouds sharing the front running role early on to the nose-banded 𝙀𝙀𝙘𝙝𝙝. Captain Redbeard up the inner and taking risks in a pale jacket out wide. And 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝, who's customarily ridden with restraint, is held up last of the 6-strong field, heading away towards the far side of the course. Delusion of Grandeur under Sean Quinlan, as moving on now from stablemate Vintage Clouds and Danny Cook. Almost three in a line behind the leading pair, taking risks on the far side. Near side Captain Redbeard, 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 between them, and a couple of lengths to 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝. And here's the second. And the leaders exchange the advantage there as 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 makes a bit of a mistake. Vintage Clouds went on from Delusion of Grandeur, but little separating them. Taking risk Captain Redbeard and 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 next, and then 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝. So to the middle fence in the back straight first time around. Fence 4. Vintage Clouds on the far side of Delusion of Grandeur, each jumping soundly, taking risks close up with Captain Redbeard. 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 now last but one, and 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝 in touch. Another plain fence before the first of the ditches. Delusion of Grandeur and Vintage Clouds as well. Captain Redbeard just tickling the top, taking risks 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 and 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝. Now the open ditch, fence 6. Vintage Clouds narrowly. Again Captain Redbeard just flicked through the top of the birch, and Vintage Clouds and Delusion of Grandeur lead them into the next bend. 2 or 3 lengths up on taking risks in the hands of promising conditional Danny McMenamin, who had a day to remember at Cheltenham last Sunday. Racing wide here have 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝, the sheepskin noseband in the centre. Harry Cobden and Paul Nicholls looking to bookend the card with a double. Sam Coulthard right around the inner aboard the Tommy Whittle winner Captain Redbeard, and 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝 and Adam Wedge last of the half dozen as they come inside the final 2 miles and approach fence 7. Vintage Clouds and Delusion of Grandeur again as one, from 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 and Captain Redbeard together, taking risks on the near side, and then 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝, and now another open ditch coming up to them. Little separating the Sue Smith front runners. They rise and touch down as one. Captain Redbeard not quite as fluent as 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 there, taking risks and 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝. And the next fence brings them to the end of a circuit. Delusion of Grandeur on the right, again upsides Vintage Clouds, and 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 taking risks. Captain Redbeard towards the far side, the spotted sleeve jacket, and then 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝. And here's fence 10. And Delusion of Grandeur crashes out and hampers Captain Redbeard. He was arsed up, didn't pick up. The gelding's quickly on his feet. He's none the worse. Sean Quinlan on his knees. Delusion of Grandeur's cantered off. He's left his stablemate Vintage Clouds a length and a half clear of 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝. And then taking risks and Captain Redbeard and 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝 with a circuit to travel. And they head away towards the first of the 5 fences in the back straight once again. So Vintage Clouds left in front following that dramatic departure of Delusion of Grandeur, and happily I can report that Sean Quinlan is up and has walked away from the landing side of that 10th fence as Vintage Clouds leads them towards the 11th, from 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 and taking risks on the far side, and then Captain Redbeard and 𝙀𝙗𝙗𝙝. Vintage Clouds, 𝙀𝙀𝙗𝙝 jumping well, forced a slight error there from taking risks, who nodded on landing. 𝙀𝙗 at the back of the field, just a little outpaced at this stage. Captain Redbeard in fourth is close up. Down to the 12th, 𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙚 jumping on, then again taking risks, just a little awkward, but he came to join the leading line, and now they're three abreast. 𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙚 taking risks, and the grey head of Vintage Clouds up between them. And then Captain Redbeard in a gap to 𝙀𝙗. And there 𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙚 landed steeply and has unseated Harry Cobden. All but fell. Cobden had no chance. 𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙚's out of the race, and we're down to 4. Vintage Clouds going on to the 14th, jumping well from taking risks, and Captain Redbeard close up, and 𝙀𝙗 a little remote, and 𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙚 running loose behind the field, and Harry Cobden getting to his feet, and they're going to the penultimate ditch last in the back. Vintage Clouds, Captain Redbeard jumping up well on the inner.
Hackbridge then has won at Lingfield. Hackbridge the winner at Lingfield. Let's get back to Haydock, where Captain Redbeard, after a troubled trip, is now disputing the lead.
4 fences up the straight to jump. Captain Redbeard getting through on the inner of Vintage Clouds, taking risks, having to be shaken along now. Only a length and a half away in third, but Danny McMenamin is having to work away on the gelding, and they're well clear of 𝙀𝙗, the only other one still going, swinging on in to face this final line of fences. Vintage Clouds in the centre. Far side, Captain Redbeard has travelled up strongly. Couple of lengths now to taking risks. Here's 4 out. Captain Redbeard and Vintage Clouds as one. Taking risks is now 4 lengths away, and they're clear of 𝙀𝙗, and on down towards the ditch they come, the third last. Captain Redbeard and Vintage Clouds, they're still inseparable, and again they come away from the fence virtually as one. Captain Redbeard on the right, shaken up. Vintage Clouds with stamina assured is grinding away on the near side, clear of taking risk. Here's the second last. Vintage Clouds and Captain Redbeard, they continue to have a real set too, and now gallop on down to the final fence. Vintage Clouds moves into a narrow advantage. Captain Redbeard raising another effort, coming back at him. Here's the last. Vintage Clouds and Captain Redbeard as one. Off up the run-in they come. Captain Redbeard on the far side. Vintage Clouds the near side. The pendulum swinging back in his favour. Taking risks is fairly storming home. Vintage Clouds taking risks is still closing. Vintage Clouds all out. Taking risks was cutting him back in the shadows of the post. Captain Redbeard in third. 𝙀𝙗 coming up the run-in. Wow, didn't lack for drama.
Didn't lack for drama, and the odds-on punters in the running nearly got carried out on stretchers there, but Vintage Clouds has got the job done there for Sue Smith and Danny Cook. Look how far back the third horse was, taking risks, coming to the last, what's that, 12 lengths behind with 1 to jump. They both managed to jump it pretty well, the top two, and still he looks 10 lengths behind, taking risks, but he surges home just as Vintage Clouds gets the better of his rival there, Captain Redbeard. Look at this one sailing home. I tell you what, some people would have had, well, palpitations. I can say no more than that.
Yeah, it's been a big afternoon, as Gary likes to say, for the Swan Vesters. Right, Vintage Clouds then gets home for the cash, but only just in a terrific finish there at Haydock. Wraps up a magnificent afternoon of racing there. We've still got one more to come, though. We're off to Ascot for the 350. Let's see if we can finish off with a nice winner on the bumper. We'll check out the market in just a second then.